I'll record it to the cloud.
Okay.
Good. So thank you, a big thank you to Audrey. She's pushed me to make sure these events happened. Audrey is our person in Prowess that's making sure operations are executed. She's got an extremely good strategic gift, but also implementation is a strength. And for those of you who know me, visioning is my strength. Materializing that vision is definitely not my strength. So I can dream it, but to land that dream, I need a team. And I thank God for giving an amazing team who is helping and implement strategies that I know is divine strategies for the season. And so warm welcome to those who are joining. I trust that this hour will be an hour of tremendous learning and impact for you. For those who are, these days we normally start by welcoming the guests who have traveled the furthest. But with Zoom, we've all traveled from our lounge to our office or to our desk or to our computer. But for those who are in different countries, warm welcome, Stanley. Thank you for joining us from Sweden. Pierre from that country called Durban, South Africa. He's from France originally, but we call Durban another country. And then we've got Sarita up in the north of South Africa. I mean, most of you are from Cape Town. And I'm just trying to see my screen and those joining, but if you hear noise in the background, you've got a seminar that's just about to break for lunch. And so please forgive the noise. I'm going to welcome our guest to today is Jacques. Jacques van Heerden is a dear friend. We started with mentors and business coaches who all of you are familiar with. And Jacques has left the corporate world to do the greatest, the most courageous step, to step into the unknown and to start his own practice as a coach. So, Jacques, I'm going to hand over to you. Today, we basically want to talk about starting your own coaching practice. All of you are coaching, some of you are new to coaching, but I'm going to hand over to Jacques, who is probably one of the best facilitators. I've watched Jacques at work. Jacques has his own coaching practice called the Mufasa Coaching Practice, and I've had the privilege of being part of Mufasa, and from the concept to birth of Mufasa to serving on teams, serving with Jacques in different projects as Mufasa. And he is one of the very few who has made the business of coaching, a practice of coaching, into a thriving business. And Jacques has lived for the last few years. Jacques, what's it, 13, 14 years?
Nearly 16, Charles.
Oh boy, we're getting old. 16 years as a professional coach. He left a very lucrative career in the corporate world with amazing prospects to step into the unknown world of coaching. 16 years ago, very few people knew what it was all about. And I remember Jacques was in, their group was one of the first group of people we were training. We were doing that for about 4 years then. And they came with very difficult questions. But Jacques has been a big influence in my life as well. And just watching him grow the business. Jacques has served on Commensa, coaching and mentoring South Africa. He's currently on the executive team, Jacques. I think this is your last term in that. And Jacques is also with the International Coaching Federation. So he's got all the bells and whistles when it comes to coaching. He has sought out different organizations to add to his toolbox as a professional coach and mentor. And so I'm going to let Jacques tell his story. I'm going to mute my mic so that the sound of lunch doesn't make you hungry. But Jacques, I'm going to hand over to you. And please, if you have any questions, this is not a teaching session. Jacques is going to share his heart, share his journey. If you have any questions, you're welcome to raise your hand by clicking the raise your hand button. And you can ask Jacques any questions. He is as straightforward as you get. So over to you, Jacques.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And as Charles said, I want to really share from my heart. Without me actually knowing exactly what your journey has been or is going to be, I really welcome a question at any time. And it doesn't mean I'm not following a script, but I'll kind of just give you from just how I started, which is kind of important throughout the last while in terms of remembering the why. Why did I ever leave my cushy job? Well, you know, I want to give some credit to, well, a lot of credit to the fact that I met Renew Shonken in September 2004. And when he described to me what he was doing, I just knew I was wasting my time in corporate. And 2 months later, and I remember it in the sequence, sorry if it sounds freakish, forgive me. But in November 2004, my then friend and partner took a week's leave, and we spent 4 days with Charles and Renier on the then TTM. After the 4th day, I knew what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, and I couldn't fathom wasting any more time doing anything else. So I made it a matter of prayer. I set up one Saturday morning, and I prayed, and I asked God for divine wisdom and direction, and to tell me when I can start. When should I leave my my corporate life? Now, this you're not going to find in a manual on how to start a business and when to start a business, but it was important for me to really get some divine insurance, I'd like to call it, because if God said it, why would I worry in terms of whatever is going to come before? And I never forget, I got the answer from God, and on that Saturday, it was I needed to resign my job 49 days later. And what it translated to was the 24th of December 2004, which I duly did. I resigned. I didn't have a business plan. I only had God's calling very loudly in my ears, and I said, Lord, I am ready. So what transpired was eventually on the 1st of June 2005, I began my full-time practice without an email in my inbox, without literally a new client to service. However, I want to talk to you about the in between from when I resigned my job and when I started. The thinking behind it is one of the things that I made very sure of, is that I could weather the storm for at least 10 months. So had to go. So this is where I did look at my cash flow and said, God, you want me to do this? How long can I do this for? I can handle everything up until 10 months. After that, you're going to have to take over. So that was basically the bridging finance that I needed. With the then friend of mine, and we decided we're going to do this together. We then started having strategy meetings in terms of, okay, you know, you're going to start this practice. We are now being trained during this stage. After I finished the TTM, as you're all aware, I was being my oversight mentor was Rainier, and in that process, the strategic thinking started to develop in terms of when to start and so forth. And one of the key things is when you have the vocation to serve people, you need to find those types of people that you want to serve. So I literally, with my partner at that stage, started looking around, and we looked at who is it that we know in our network that could possibly give us the opportunity. We didn't have the experience. We've never done it before. We've got all this corporate experience. We certainly have the wisdom within a setting where we are employed and our CVs look great, but as coaches, completely green. And so as it would have it, is we then started talking to a pair of partners in and Ellen Termoso was my previous partner. We met these ladies, presented to them what we could do for them, because now we were putting our tools on display. We literally took the tools and said, this is what a coaching program looks like. Little did we know, but we did that. And to be honest, they were not impressed with our experience. But what they connected with was our earnest desire to serve them, to serve what we believe was our calling. And they decided to give us an opportunity. And that was how I landed my new client, via referral. Referrals are great, especially when it comes to coaching. One of the initial things is that as a new coach, you lack that confidence of understanding that you're going to deliver any kind of value, because it's not tangible. You kind of sitting there and wonder, okay, I'm going to charge them, but it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything. I'm just asking them powerful questions, and it's not tangible, or it doesn't seem to be tangible. So, you know, that consultant in you just wants to advise, just want to do for your client, because all you're doing is helping yourself overcoming the lack of confidence and the insecurity, the fact that you're taking somebody's money seemingly for nothing. But, you know, I must say the 8-month journey was an interesting one, because all that money that I put aside, I discovered I actually needed it. I had a client, but they were in such a crisis that they had turnover, but they didn't have the cash flow and couldn't afford our fees. And the whole program, the business coaching program, then facilitated their ability 8 months later for them to pay us everything we needed. It was fantastic. And that particular client actually became a turnkey client, and they opened amazing doors for us. And the reason I mentioned that is that in the beginning, on the one hand, having to work through a lack of confidence and not quite believing that you're adding value. On the other hand, is submitting your invoices and they can't be paid. In our case, it could not be paid. And once again, I inquired of God. I said, this is not great business. I didn't leave a salary that I could depend on for this vacuum. And God said, just persevere. Persevere. I said, you must do this, persevere, which I then did. And once the client worked through their issues, came out of their season of huge pressure and stress, and they were able to service all the other suppliers as well, they now became confident of our value that we were offering. And because of that, they became part and parcel of our promotion strategy. They were advertising our services, and suddenly had work in government and in corporate that we would never had as just startups in the coaching field. And this was quite an interesting walk of faith for me. But what is underlying in that initial stage is remembering why I wanted to be a coach, why I wanted to impact and change the lives of my clients. If I didn't have that, if it's merely about the bottom line and being profitable, I think I would have given up, if you can attest to it, dealing with all this uncertainty and thinking I've made a mistake. And by the way, having my wife look at me and saying, you've got 2 children in primary school and look what you've done. See, that kind of happens. That's second guessing. So I had a lot of that. But the one certainty that I did have was, well, God said, and because God said, I will persevere. And that is key. And I use that a lot in terms of how I deliver my programs, is knowing with certainty what your purpose in life is. Whether you break it down into having a mission and those kinds of things, but it's so important to know the why behind what you do, even in business. I see what I do as marketplace ministry. God has called me, and until he decides it's over, then it's over. Now, I realize that dealing with my inner insecurities, as far as feeling that I'm not adding value was concerned, is I then in parallel did a lot of pro bono work with willing friends and family. I tested the tools. I think it was either Renier or Charles who said in one of the training days that we had, or it was during my mentorship period, that, you know, to become fairly proficient or comfortable in a tool, you need to have delivered it 40 times. I took that literally. So I found as many guinea pigs as I possibly could, and I tested the tools so I could start to internalize them and not want to grab my piece of paper or the outline of the tool, or even depend on the tool. I've grown to realize after all these years that I am the tool, and everything else is just a cherry on top. Because if God's called me, is therefore gifted me the unique qualities, the talents, the ability to serve others in a way that helps them become prosperous and successful. And so it takes a while, but eventually now I think about 3 years it took for me to begin to feel fairly confident. Now, the 3 years is quite important and significant in my life. I'm not too sure about you, but, you know, and you will hear, I just believe that there's 4 books in the Bible that are the greatest leadership manuals. And it's the Gospels, the 4 Gospels, and I love to go and have a look at them. So the 3 years, when I think about when Jesus launched his ministry, you know, him and his disciples ministered for 3 years for him to accomplish that which he was called to do. And I kind of looked at that period as significant even in my life. So taking a step back, just to reiterate, is dealing with insecurity around new language, new tool. I'll never forget I went to Australia for a week as in addition to the training that I received under TTM, and spent some time with Michael. And Michael said to me the one day, listen, the greatest asset you have, or assets, is you've got a mouth and you've got the ears, but you've got to use them in the right ratio. The reason you have 2 ears is you listen twice as much as what you talk, and I've never forgotten that. So I practiced and I practiced, and I started to believe when I saw the results. And one of the key things at the start is to make the decision on whether or not you want to operate as a sole proprietor, or whether you want to actually register, a company. Now, in my case, then CCs were still available and an offer. We registered a company called MBCI Gauteng CC, and we branded it with all the MBCI logos. And at that stage, we, with MBCI, we were called licensed facilitators, and we paid a licensing fee to enable us to do so. And I must say, MBCI CC then grew into a company that provided very well for my family, for my kids throughout their whole, for both my daughter and my son, high school, university. And in 2007, how Mufasa came about was we all wanted to do things in community. And Rainier often reminded us that, when you in community, you serve each other with extended elbows, which means you feed the person next to you on the left and the right. And so, long story short, Mufasa was birthed, and because it's centered on a pride of lions, on how they hunt and feed together. And so I stopped operating out of MBCI CC, and since 2008, literally marketed my services through what is now known as the Mufasa coaching practice. So before I just ramble on and on and on, there's all kinds of threads that are popping off in my head. Are there any questions at this stage? Anything you'd like to ask me right now? Anybody?
Why the name Mufasa?
We wanted something that would remind us that we as MBCI accredited business coaches, mentors and business coaches, wanted to do something together. And we wanted a reminder, first and foremost, of why we are doing it. And the first thing about Mufasa is in The Lion King, it comes from The Lion King, number one, is first and foremost, who is the authority of what we were doing or what we are doing as a coach. And we believe that God, the Father, the Son, encapsulates the Mufasa part, or the spiritual authority of the practice. And then the community, as I just pointed out, Charles, is that, we know it's not the Lion King who goes out to hunt, it's the lionesses who go out to hunt in pride. And it's also the lionesses who actually mentor the male cubs inner pride. And it's actually quite beautiful. They take them away for about 6 weeks, and then they socialize them back into the community, into the pride, because if they don't, the male lion, the king, tend to want to kill them off because it's his territory. So it was quite important that Mufasa encapsulates both who do we submit to as our higher authority, and secondly, the fact that we work together. And it is about how we market our services together, and that's the hunting part. How do we strategize together? And the feeding together is obviously sharing in projects and so forth. And that was how Mufasa was born. in 2007, and it took a group of MBCs, I don't know, a period of like 3-4 months coming together, planning all of this, implementing it, launching it. I remember November 2007, Charles, there where on your brother's premises, quite a big deal then. I don't know if that does that answer your question, Charles?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's about collaboration. And Jacques, you and we have coaches, practicing coaches on today listening in, and we have coaches who's asked for the recording, so they're going to watch this afterwards. But I know that from day one you made coaching your sole business. You uh, you didn't do, you weren't a mechanic who added coaching to what you did, or an auditor that added coaching. And I remember you leaving a very promising career. And over the 16 years, this is all you've done. We've got some auditors online. We've got some marketing, advertising people online who run their businesses, and they've added coaching to it. But you're one of the unique few that has said, I'm going to do coaching. I'm going to start my practice. I'm going to build Mufasa, and this is it. And you're very successful in what you do. What advice would you give to those who are starting out, or those who are doing their practices on the side and doing coaching? What are the things that will really make a, if you could draw out some of these things that would make you successful as a coach? You mentioned that you need to be called, and I know you have been true to that. But are there any practical things that can really help say, I can make coaching my business? Right now, um, I've coaching brings in quite a bit of my income right now. I know it brings in all of your income, Jacques. But there are many here on the call today. If you want to give them some advice, some direction about their coaching practice, and they hearing this call, yeah, what are the things that will help them be successful in coaching?
Sure.
Just
Yeah.
say I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, you've given me an exit clause. Well, the one thing I do rest on, that's why I gave you this long preamble, is I think coaching, other than, consulting, counseling, well, even counseling, I guess, could fall within this category. There's a few careers that I would say fall within this category. For me, I think generally I would say is it is, and Charles, I must admit to you, to me, it's not just a spiritual facet of who I am. It's very much practical, because the certainty with which you make this decision, and you asked why is it that, for me it was an all in. It was because I absolutely believed that this is what I was now called to do. I have my whole life I've been waiting for the opportunity for somebody to describe the yearnings that I had. And so the certainty with which I know I was called, that's why I see it as a vocation. That's why I see it as a ministry, that I'm called to impact the marketplace in a certain way. Is I needed to start with that as my foundation. And so I would say is every one of us who starts anything, if you want to step into this as a full-time coach, we all have different risk appetites. And so we will do things differently. For me, I'm the Peter type. God said I must do it, I'll just go do it. I don't have to work out the kinks first, but that's kind of my style. That's how I operate, but that is not how I would prescribe it. For others, you need to develop the roadmap to that place eventually that you can do it full time, and as long as you want to do it full time. For others, it's an add-on. You're passionate to run a company and you see coaching as a worthwhile add-on, and you do that, but it's not all that you're called to do. It's something that augments your services or it's value added in that way. And, so I need to acknowledge that everybody's different, but if you want to make coaching your full-time business, it starts off with the spiritual certainty that you have been earmarked to do this thing that you catch yourself doing, even though nobody's paying you for it, right? You've noticed that's who you are, and that is what fulfills you the most. So I talk to my clients about fulfillment, and I think as a coach, you got to have that same conviction. You got to be fulfilled in what you do. So it sits within the foundation. And the reason I'm stressing this, Charles, is that business cycles. There are times of plenty and there are times of lack. It's amazing. And each one has a different type of cycle. And when the tough times come around, you need to remember why you are doing what you're doing. And it's not just something that you started doing because it was a great idea and it looked like, it's something worldwide that is just growing, that's so popular. It's one of the best money spinners because it is so attractive and because there's such a demand for it. Business cycles, and you need to remain true. It becomes your compass, your North Star. It is that why, the reason for why you're doing it, keeps you centered when tough times comes, keeps you able to be creative and innovative when challenges come, when the thing that used to work no longer works. You need to stay open. You need to still be adventurous, creative, and you need not be overcome with fear. You step into that place of continual uncertainty because you are certain. That doesn't matter that circumstances have changed to such an extent that it's now no longer familiar. It's no longer your place of comfort. When you're in that space, it doesn't matter what the challenge, it doesn't matter what the client brings as a challenge. You can solve them, but you got to kind of, and it's the same, you start with yourself. And practically, once you have that laid, that as a foundation, one of the things that I say to coaches normally is that your target market develops because you are unique. Each one of us is a unique tool. And the tool, especially if you know, and if you're certain you've been called, that tool is called for a specific purpose to meet a specific need. So you'll find that certain people gravitate to you. You might say, I want to deal with corporates, but you might find you deal with private individuals doing life coaching rather than business coaching because you have been called to minister to those people. So you kind of keep your eyes open. Who are the people that are attracted to you? Who are the people who want to listen to you? Who are the people who want to pay for your services, right? As a sort of a start. So the progression is normally, okay, who is attracted to you and want to sample, the best way I can put it, want to sample your wisdom, is take note of that practically, because that helps you. Then as you notice that, you begin to say, okay, these are the kinds of people, these are the kinds of people that I want to serve. And then once you're very clear about that, you then look at all your marketing materials. Nowadays, Having a website is one thing, but it's not just the only thing that you need. It's also how do you portray yourself in terms of if you are going to use any social media marketing. I was speaking about referrals. I'll come back to that now. But it also helps you define exactly who it is you're targeting in the way you set up and design your website. Secondly, your social media platforms need to then also have congruence. They have to also speak the same language. You got to kind of speak to the type of people that you know you help the best. And if you stay true to that, money follows. But if you look over the fence and you say, oh, but I want the types of clients that Charles have, and I'm going to go and market myself, you're going to spend a lot of money on advertising, and you're going to be frustrated because you're going to wonder, why am I not receiving the favor of a contract with those types of people, those types of clients? So to reiterate, take note, who are the people that gravitate toward you right now? If you're already coaching, some of you can answer that question. But if you're stepping into it, who are the types of people who have been attracted to you in any case? And then use that to shape your marketing message, your advertising message, what you say to different types of people.
Thanks, Jacques. I've been training coaches for 20 years now. And the one thing I found that's most common after all the training, all the field work, and I remember one of the contracts we had with the Department of Health, somebody that we had actually has sat in about 3 training programs, had done hours of field work. And I remember before we about to walk into the room to do the coaching, she was too nervous. I can't mention names, but I think you remember the picture, Jacques, where you held her hand and said it was going to be okay. One of the things in transitioning into seeing coaching and the service you offer is confidence. Can you speak to us about that? How do you get, I found that over 20 years, this is the biggest thing, is for those who have been trained, those who have been equipped to actually step into the arena. And it's simply because they don't have the confidence. They're going to step into the room with a client and they are so afraid. Can you speak into that? How do we do that? How do we get that confidence?
I'm going to sound like a stuck record, but I'll give you a variation to the answer. I think it's not an or, it's an and. So know that you have called, number one. Number two, one of the things that most of my clients struggle with is I ask this question is, what makes you special? And and I think as a startup coach is you need to answer that for yourself. What makes you special? What are your gifts and your talents? And I would say is that if you cannot answer that question immediately, it's to actually ask the people, if you're married, ask your wife, ask your husband, ask your mother, your father, your sisters, brothers, friends, colleagues. Ask the question is, what do you think makes me unique or special? Ask if you don't know how to answer that yourself. And the reason why that is important, remember this, is that you are the tool, you are the conduit. And you've been gifted with things that are unique that nobody else has. We all have perhaps the same tool in our hands, but I can guarantee you, and Charles knows, we all use this tool differently in our hands. The tool comes through differently. And the reason for that is that we are different. We see the world differently. We experience the world differently. And if to help build your the first stepping stone towards that, to me, is a self-appreciation of your own uniqueness and the unique delivery of a tool that you know will definitely help the client. I would say, as a first time that you are sitting across a client normally, is to understand this, that in your hands, whether you've used the tool perfectly or not, you've given your client the space, the platform to work on their lives or to work on their businesses, and they just so good. They've allowed you to have that conversation, so they trusted something about you. They think they connected with you, and so you need to trust the connection, the fact that they want to work with you. So now in the delivery, just remind yourself, I am trusted to deliver. I'm trusted to be. I mean, some of the old MBCI language was trusted advisor. I am trusted as an advisor. Yes, we are mentoring and coaching, but I am trusted as an advisor, kind of an advisor initially. So you can stand on that and know that you have been welcomed into a space that you need to hold for your client. They have opened the door and you have stepped in. They wanted you there. So that as a key component of feeding your level of confidence. Then you rest in this one thing, your own uniqueness. You're going to use a tool. It's not the tool that solves, that creates, that articulates a vision and comes up with an action plan. It's you using a tool as a reference. Now, if you use it perfectly, or in your case, you think you're using it perfectly, I'm telling you, even imperfect use of the tool as a guide is great, because you are still adding value. Remember, you have stepped over the initial threshold, and let's call it a trust threshold. You have been invited in. I mean, if somebody invites you into their home for a meal, you don't continually, when you wait for them to when they say, come sit down, you sit down, and then they bring the tea, and then you ask them for their permission all along the way. No, when they invited you into their home and you go sit down, they are going to treat you as a sacred guest, and that means anything that they place before you, you will partake of. So think about it in this way, is that you've been allowed, you've been granted access and permission to step into a space with a client. That's massive. That should be morale and confidence boosting. I would say, hang on to that. No matter how you are using your tool, remember I said something that Michael said to me, ears, how you are able to listen and reflect back is 90% of their interaction. 90% of the interaction, because that's what the clients want to know, that they are being heard, not being spoken at. Somebody's actually listening to me. That's the second thing. Trust threshold. Number 2, show that you are listening. You see, you're not going to listen if you're worried about how you're going to use the tool. You need to be fully present to listen, and then be fully present, because you have been given access into a space that you need to keep safe, right? So now be grateful and be fully present.
Wow.
Listen. And if you do those 2 things well, and you see that as a common denominator, it just so much feeds your confidence. And the last thing I want to say is, every time you sit with somebody new, even if you've done it for, in Charles's case, 20, and some of you might have done it for 25 years, 30 years, every time you meet a client, it's a new client. The tool stays a guideline because it's a new client. You know nothing about them. You have to start from zero. So what can you depend on if you're always starting from zero, right? Have you been invited in? Can you be fully present and use your ears in relation or in ratio with your mouth? listen, active listening. We get taught that. How do you listen actively? And if all that you're doing is that, and by the way, remember the whole calling is you really want to help the client. You're not thinking about the bottom line. And with that heart behind your motive, you step in, and there's one thing you need to know, and I think this fuels confidence, is that you will add value. You will have impact. Now, in my case, I step in, I know nothing about the business, I know nothing about the person, but we said when we started planning the formation of Mufasa, we said the one sustainable competitive advantage is that we have superior wisdom. I'll never forget. I don't know, Charles, if you can still remember. I think the other person in this room, I think is Alistaire. I don't know if he remembers. We said superior wisdom. We don't know why we know what we know because you're not on your own. There are 3 people there who provide you with everything that you need in that moment. And for me, that's comforting. Any situation that I'm unfamiliar with, I know I'm not alone because I will know what to do. Don't have to force it. And so literally, the last thing I want to say, every coaching interaction has got a rhythm to it. You know, you got to get into the flow of the conversation. You don't have to be hurried. You don't have to be pressured. There is an outcome for a meeting, but you've come in with the essential things and therefore the knowledge that in the time that you do have, you can add value.
Wow. Thank you, Jacques. Valuable, valuable insights. This is years of learning that you're downloading, and experience, personal experience where you walked. I know you've served a lot of corporate clients, you've done mentoring of executives, you've done quite a few prestigious clients that we would all want to put on our portfolio. But in this time of COVID, and maybe the question might be a little bit too personal, but you can answer it generally. A lot of companies are struggling. A lot of industries are battling right now. For some of the coaches on the call today, how do they stay afloat? How do they maintain clients? How do they find new clients in this very difficult period? How are you doing it? I know you've got 16 years of experience, and one thing we've learned is that your last client is your last client. Yeah. What can coaches do in this period? I know our time has gone so quickly, and if there's any last questions and you don't want to put your screen on and answer, you're welcome to type it in the chat box, and we can answer it if we do run out of time. It will be a hard close today. But if you have questions, you're welcome to post it in the chat. But I'll leave this very difficult question for Jacques. I gave him a few seconds just to think.
Look, it's quite interesting. And I just want to remind you of the golden thread of everything that I've said. So personally, COVID-19 and the associated lockdown, has been tremendously, had a tremendous negative impact, even on what I've been doing, from a pipeline that I've been working on hard. And that's the other thing about ensuring there's always new work coming in once the one contract kind of comes to an end, is suddenly that pipeline has dried up. So in that way is what do I do? Now, there's one thing that is a universal truth. I just want to say this is initially the panic does set in and there's a level of anxiety, but listen, It's only conviction and confidence that sells. You're sitting in front of somebody who has to consider your services. You don't sit there being desperate and say, please, I've lost all my clients. I need you to buy from me. The point is, and I'm dealing with the internal world, is it's the same thing in a different sense, is that confidence that you require. In terms of, well, the situation is trying, it is pressurizing. In some cases, things have dried up. Key question, am I still called? If the answer is yes, then you look for the kinds of strategies that is downloaded. I mean, I think about Jacob, who in his next 7 years working now for the actual wife he wanted, Rachel. God gave him a strategy to become prosperous, and it made no sense whatsoever, and it just had to do with him taking of a piece of branch and throwing it in water, and seeing a result. So what I'm saying is that, you know, in this time of uncertainty, there isn't clarity of what the future holds, not great clarity, because what we tend to do as people is that we extrapolate our experience into the future in the way we see the future. So we've all heard different things in terms of new normal, next normal, whatever the case might be, but whatever life was before COVID, it's not going to return to that. And so what I'm certainly with existing clients really struggling to stay afloat. The key is, remember, collaboration. What we tend to do is when we're stressed is that we isolate and we work in silos. Collaboration, and why is collaboration so key right now for all of us, is it comes back to the principle, let's hunt together so that we can feed together, meaning this, that when we collaborate and within a network of trusted relationship, anxiety disappears. And guess what replaces that anxiety? It's our ability to think out of the box, our ability to be creative, our ability to try new things because we're not afraid of failure. What's the worst that can happen? Go and try things, go and experiment. And what I'm doing personally is I'm experimenting with all kinds of different things. And the key is experiment as fast as you possibly can, because you can learn from it. What works, what doesn't work. My messaging has now to change. What am I saying? What does my target market now need? And can they pay for my services still? And I must say that as a coach, it's not a question of, I'm a firm believer of this, of doing as I say or doing as I facilitate. I say, whatever I'm going to facilitate, I'm quite prepared to do myself. And I do it. I absolutely do it, because that's the joy of doing all kinds of different things. I mean, just for example, you know, as Mufasa, we offering a product. I've never offered a product before, but we're offering a product. We call it the social media intelligence product that has coaching in it. And so we offer different things. So we uncovering a different target market as we're doing so. We testing it, we experimenting with it. And I can go on. I can give you so many examples, and I'm aware our time is up.
Wow.
Charles, there was one last question there, and I don't know if we have a minute to answer it.
Yes, Beatrice asks, I know Alistaire says he has to leave, but we're gonna shut down in 2-3 minutes. And Beatrice asked the question, what's the length of time someone will need the mentoring relationship? Is it good to agree at the onset how long it will initially be? So it's a practical question.
Is that, just the context, is it, are we talking about delivering a mentoring relationship or requesting a mentor as you deliver as a mentor coach? What is the context?
As a mentor, when you're mentoring someone, what I find usually is that I can't really determine how long the mentoring relationship is going to last in terms of the needs of the person. And then that's one of the questions I have, where everybody like kind of asks me, how long will this take? And I can't determine it. I'm not very good at determining, because I feel it goes, you know, according to the needs and, you know, what happens thereafter. But I find that a lot of people are asking me, you know, how long is this going to take?
Well, I can tell you what I do is I have a standard, depending on who it is I'm talking about. If it's to a corporate, in a corporate program, then it's like a minimum 4 months to 6 months, right? And then built in, rolled over as agreed. So if it's a business coaching or business mentoring program, then it's 3 months. It's basically, let's see, 6 sessions. And I know that these are the deliverables, and we will roll over as agreed, because coaching is something that has to be experienced. And people just say, they think of it as training, which it isn't, because as you are coaching, you are uncovering so much. Suddenly you uncover such a big boulder, such a big barrier to success in somebody's life. That's not going to take you just 3 months to work through it. But in the facilitation, somebody then recognizes the moment to, you know, to roll over and realize that what they thought was going to be quick and easy, they're going to learn something and therefore they're going to be successful. They then become, or you form a partnership in terms of, okay, let's extend. I've extended many. We thought 6 months and we ended up 18 months. In some cases, we thought 1 year, and I'm still coaching one client after 12 years. Yeah. You know, it just all depends, but you start in some way. You know, what you want to do is prove value. And so you know that you can't do that within one session. So at least you need, I would say, 6 sessions, however you slice and dice that, whether it's 3 months or 4 months.
Good, very good advice. You start off small and let the client ask to continue. So a good indication is to start with 3 months, Beatrice, and then let them ask to continue. And like Jacques says, you will add value within, by the 4th, 5th session, you would be adding tremendous value, and they would want to continue. But there's more questions popping up, but these questions we're going to record and then answer them. Issues, questions on costing and how we do this. The how and the practical stuff, this is what these sessions is about. I would love to take more questions and answer, but every month we'll have one of these master classes where we will focus on coaching and mentoring and how you run your professional practice. And we would unpack some new tools, thinking that is currently in the market, strategies that are currently working for coaches. It's to help you with your practice. So let me encourage you, as Jacques has said, is this your call? And you will know it. You'll know it when you're in that room and you walk out of your session. You will know that this is your call. There will be just that joy within you. And you'll feel so contented with what you are doing. Jacques, I want to say thank you for your time. I'm so glad you're not billing me for this hour. It's not cheap, I can tell you. But thank you for your time. There's one person I've learned how to bowl by is Jacques. He knows how to bowl. And he's taught me a lot about that. So thank you, Jacques. And next month we'll be back online. We'll send the notice out. Thank you, Audrey, for doing it. And we'll have one of the other coaches share and have tremendous insight into how you not only come into the call, but how you add tremendous value to this world that is pretty much upside down right now. And everybody's afraid and everybody's uncertain. So everybody, I can tell you how, I can't number how many requests I've had for mentoring. People are looking for mentors right now. So you available, you are, like Jacques says, I want to quote him, the tool. Be the most amazing tool. Be confident, be bold, and be humble. And you'll see God work and use you mightily. So thank you, Jacques. Really a big thumbs up. Some are saying, great, thank you, great session. And for those who want to talk, I will invite some of you to share your thoughts and your ideas. But God bless you. Have an awesome day further. This recording will be available, and Audrey will teach me how to do that. But thank you for joining us, and see you all next month. And for some of you that want to connect with me, feel free. Nice to see Musakanya from Zambia online. So happy to have you. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, really glad to have you with us. Stanley, yes, as you sent us a message, I thank you. I receive your messages. I will respond. And have an awesome evening further for those in South Korea, and for the rest of you in the Southern Hemisphere. Have an awesome day further. God bless you. Bye now.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you.
Everybody. Thanks.
Thanks for joining.